the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Let's be seated. A new heart I will give you, and a new spirit I will put within you. I will remove from your body the heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. I will put my spirit within you. Then you shall live in the land that I gave to your ancestors. So I've been thinking a lot this week about hearts of stone. And I'll confess that for most of my life, as I've kind of heard and read this biblical image, I've imagined cold-hearted villains. I don't know who is your favorite from maybe film or literature. Do you have, we're not going to share them, but do you have a favorite villain you can draw in your mind? I'm a sort of fan of Sherlock Holmes. And so one of my favorite villains is Professor James Moriarty. And he was played by Jared Harris in the second one with Robert Downey Jr. Cold heart. Anybody seen the new James Bond film? My husband couldn't be with us today because he had the opportunity of a road trip with a brother to see another brother, and I heard they went to No Time to Die, and Safin is an intriguing villain. So I think I've kind of tended to pass, Heart of Stone. That's who those people, that's who that is, right? I started thinking that there's actually a lot of different kinds of hearts of stone. I'm a bit worried about us right now that some of us may have rather paralyzed hearts. With all that's gone on with the pandemic, we're kind of walking around with hearts sometimes frozen by anxiety. Are you ever so anxious that you're just frozen, kind of in shock? So I think that the disorientation, when to wear our masks, what's going on, how to stay safe, it can, and just having to juggle and shift. And sometimes you just don't know what to do, and I think we can have a kind of frozen, paralyzed heart, immobile, unmoved. Another malady I think I see is how political and cultural polarization in our country can leave us with hearts that are half stone. I don't care kind of where we fall in the different issues, polarized. Sometimes there seem to be such divergent views of reality that you can't fathom how the person who thinks differently from you believes that. You think, what? And I have seen people be so kind and loving. They're amazingly loving people to the people that think the way they do, right? But then, when it comes to those others, stone, that kind of, right? So kind of, and I think I could be guilty of this sometimes. Hearts of half stone. Some of us have just suffered a lot. And I think our hearts are a little protected. We kind of calcify, they're kind inside, and for all, maybe it's not half, right? We love everybody, but we're just going to be a little careful because we don't want to be hurt. So to such people, maybe not the villains. I have been a priest, now bishop, for 32 plus years, and I really don't know that I've ever met James Moriarty in church. So I don't know if I'm preaching to that kind of heart. But to the rest of us with protected hearts, disoriented hearts, anxious hearts, even half-hating hearts, Jesus of Nazareth comes. And almost the first thing he does, he gets baptized. From the beginning, he is out for the transformation of hearts. And seemingly, it's going to start with his own. As we're kind of, Mark describes Jesus' own baptism, these things happen. He has a vision. He hears God's voice, and in that, his identity and his ministry become clear. So the vision, Mark is quick, right? He's our Hemingway of the gospel. It's, succinct. And it's almost lost a bit in the English translation, but it's more vivid in the Greek. As that water, as he's in the water, comes up, he sees the heavens torn apart. One of the things I love about being in Kansas again are the skies. And today, driving from Topeka here at about a little before 9, beautiful. I don't know, did anybody see it? The sun was, so we had all these layers of clouds and the sun coming down. What they say Jesus experienced was more than even a Kansas busy, beautiful sky. The heavens were torn apart, and what Mark was actually trying to say something theologically was that the division between God, the creator of all things, and humanity and the earth was gotten rid of. The barriers that had kept the earth, her creatures, and the people from living the way things were intended from the beginning, they were erased. Jesus saw that. And then he heard this. He heard, "You are my beloved." And in the baptism in Mark, it's private, right? God speaks to you. At the transfiguration, God's going to declare it to everybody who's around. This is my beloved son. But here, it's you are my beloved son. This is the one. Jesus is the one of whom Ezekiel prophesies, who says he is the one who will bear the heart and the Spirit of God in human form, because he knows that that's his identity and his ministry, to be loved, to be the beloved of God. And this transforms hearts. Father Marco, did you choose the final hymn or musician? Thank you. When we leave today, and I know how much St. Margaret's loves music, and I know that's been a hard thing. Some of our hearts are just of stone, of sadness, of not being able to sing without masks as fully as we want yet, but it's coming. We have faith, right? But this hymn we will sing, and it sums up so amazingly. It was written by Charles Wesley, the Wesley brother who never wasn't an Anglican. John, some say John never was, right? He did ordain people and wasn't a bishop. So I'm thinking he kind of knew what he was doing. Charles stayed in the church, but was a Methodist still, Anglican Methodist, and he wrote these incredible songs. And the Wesleys had a warming of their hearts, right? It was out of that experience that Charles wrote this song, and these are the words, and I can't say it any better. What Jesus experienced was a love divine. So, not a human love, and that love is excelling. It's beyond any human loves. The best love, and I hope you've had a lot of that. but take it beyond. The love of God is beyond anything we know. Love divine, all loves excelling, joy of heaven to earth come down. That's what we were kind of saying, right? That barrier's gone. All that's in the cosmos, that power of love comes to us. Fix in us thy humble dwelling, all thy faithful mercies crown. Jesus, thou art all compassion, pure, unbounded love thou art. Visit us with thy salvation. Enter every trembling heart. Every trembling heart. This love of God is no simplistic God. Jesus' life made it clear that this was a love that was acquainted with suffering and with grief, so that the depths of what we have to endure, that is filled with this love as well. And I was so moved by stories shared by some who are about to recommit themselves, that in some times of deep suffering, they still knew, the heart was still broken, but they knew that God was there. The love of God was with them. So Jesus, he experienced being loved. He went around, spent his life showing them, teaching the way of love and revivifying hearts. Isn't that, if you take your Gospels and you just read them, I mean, occasionally he's challenging people on the state of their heart, right? But most of the time, he's just bringing them back to life, giving them that heart that we celebrate today. The Apostle Paul, the great missionary, made it clear that what Jesus experienced in being the beloved comes to us, is unleashed for us. His whole life, Paul had been trying to get to God, but now he experienced what Jesus did. That the division, that any blocks to relationship with full knowledge of God is blown away, and his heart was revivified. Paul says this, for as many of you as were baptized into Christ have put on Christ. We too are given the heart of God. Paul's theology is incredible. It's a whole nother sermon, and many have been hearing it lately. Interestingly, Romans tells us that as our hearts are changed, the whole creation is actually redeemed as well. And there's a lot of hurting heart around in the earth, I would say. When I saw that oil spill and all the fish and everything, those are hearts of stone that have died. And Paul, if you look into that Romans, he says that as we become the children of God, we are changed to better care for the earth and that it gets redeemed through us. I worry about water in Kansas. I'll be honest, as I saw out west, Lake Mead, Lake Powell drying up, and Arizona not having enough water, we got to take care of ours here, or our land could be a heart of stone. But as we're changed and are the beloved, we also bring all creation with us. I remember a time when I was having a rough time. I was dean of the cathedral in Des Moines, and my older son was going through a real hard time. He was late college, living in New York. It was kind of rough. And I went to see these nuns and asked for spiritual direction. And I always remember it was kind of funny because they gave me somebody, and then you had to write what was going on with you. And then they wrote me back and they said, well, actually, we're giving you to Sister Betty. And she was the mother superior. I thought, oh, I sound like a problem, right? I got kicked up to Sister Betty. And she taught me some contemplative practices. And when you do centering prayer, you choose a line. And she said, you are loving all the time. Loving, the cathedral congregation, loving your family. But take this mantra, be loved. Whenever your heart is trembling, as Wesley said, or shocked, or a little half full of hate, take that prayer and ask that the God who loved Jesus comes to you. Over and over inside yourself, say, be loved. And may all of our hearts be changed. Amen.